Hello there. Today I watched the film Oppenheimer, and now I want to tell you about it. For those of you without a history background, Robert J. Oppenheimer is commonly referred to as the father of the atomic bomb. He worked on the Manhattan Project and led the labs at Los Alamos. The film is a biographical drama that follows Oppenheimer through his adult life and the creation of the atom bomb. It also follows a trial and witch hunt that Dr. Oppenheimer experienced and a bit of his personal life. The movie is based on the book American Prometheus written by Kai Bird and Martin Sherwin, and was adapted into a screenplay and directed by Christopher Nolan. It has an ensemble cast with more famous faces than sense, but the big standouts include Cillian Murphy as Robert J. Oppenheimer, Emily Blunt as Kitty Oppenheimer, Robert Downey Jr. as Louis Strauss, and Matt Damon as General Groves. There's a lot going on with this film, so I'm going to start by talking about the story. The movie is made up of 3 different timelines that are all cut together, and each timeline is set in a different era of Oppenheimer's life. The first is a meeting in which Oppenheimer's government security clearance is being reviewed. The second is a public hearing in which a group of senators questions Louis Strauss about his interactions with Oppenheimer, and the third is Oppenheimer's personal life and the creation of the bomb. The movie cuts around between the 3 different timelines at will, and it weaves together a narrative about how Robert's views developed over time, how people's views of him changed over time, and how the world changed because of his actions. The journey was torturous to get through, and the lack of context or setup is one of the first things you should notice about the film. It cuts around from place to place, never showing any travel time, never telling us how long it's been since the last scene, or even cluing us in to where we are or what we're doing. It feels incredibly disjointed and confusing, and often I struggle to put the pieces together in time to keep up with the film. Then, during the scenes, they like to cut them short and only show you the broad strokes of the action. If he has a conversation with someone, we only hear the most relevant lines, and often they just skip that too, and show us what his relationship was about with the person. Like with one female character, she shows up and within 30 seconds we see her and Oppenheimer having sex. We're never told why he likes her or what she likes about him, and we never see any other part of their relationship. She appears several more times, and every single time we see a sex scene. It leads to the experience of feeling like you're watching a highlight reel rather than a film. You don't get to know any of the characters, not really, and even Oppenheimer is left rather undeveloped because of it. It also undercuts a lot of the excitement. You don't know the characters well or even feel that invested in them, so when they're in trouble or going through a moment, you don't really care. The story is confusing, poorly presented, and because of how it was done, you can't even get that into it. The only interesting parts of the film were around how the bomb was actually made. The tension during that section was palpable. Visually, the film struggles. As I said earlier, they seem afraid to go beyond 30 seconds in scene length, and the constant cutting around made for a confusing visual journey. Most of the film is Oppenheimer and different people conversing about the bomb, about his history, and about the moral duties of scientists. There is one big explosion scene later on in the film that is a big standout, but it wasn't very long. The conversations are fairly standard back and forth edits with a close-up to capture the emotions. They do a good job of that, but rarely focus on anyone long enough to get the full effect. The film switches up its style constantly to depict the different eras, and it leads to a nice aesthetic. Sometimes it's in color, and sometimes it's black and white. Cast-wise, there are a lot of great performances here that are cut into pieces and presented like snapshots. We get to see Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer in just about every aspect of his life. At work, at home, in his relationships, and by himself. Murphy puts a lot of work into creating a fully realized character and truly embodies the internal struggle that Oppenheimer went through. His charisma shines through in everyday moments, and he has a natural chemistry with the other actors that makes each scene feel unique. His best scenes are shots of him contemplating Oppenheimer's life's work, and trying to contend with the magnitude of it. For example, there's a moment after the bomb test where he is addressing a crowd and getting lost in the moment. Murphy in that scene looks like a veteran doing a 1,000-yard stare at all the horrific memories lurking in the background. Outside of Murphy, we get strong performances from Robert Downey Jr., Matt Damon, David Krumholtz, and many others. There's no end to strong performances in this film. The problem goes back to how little time they all get. They can make a huge impression, but are only part of the film for 30 seconds. The soundtrack might be the worst part of the film. It is too loud at literally every single point in the film, is oversaturated, and is made up of background instrumentals that are generic and boring. We get simple instrumentals coming in at volumes that always compete with the dialogue and are at times deafening. It's distracting and makes it hard to follow the story. The songs sit under every single scene with a rare bit of silence once every hour. The songs are made up of a few notes and are usually 1 or 2 instruments max. They're not very interesting, don't sound good, and aren't memorable at all. The movie would have been 30% better if they just took the soundtrack out altogether. Just having the ability to actually hear the actors would have made the experience so much more enjoyable. Overall, Oppenheimer was an entirely disappointing experience. It endeavors to tell the life story of one of the greatest scientific minds of the last 100 years, and instead presented snapshots of his life with no context, cut together in a confusing way, and drowned out by generic music. If you really want to see this film, you should wait until it's out on DVD. 3 out of 10. And remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Bye-bye.